Chapter 7. It was the final Nicardon base, the last one listed in General Yeve's records in this part of space. As such, Aralani had anticipated a major battle against whatever desperate, hopeless enemy forces might have hitherto escaped the overall sweep of Chiss' vengeance. Nothing a Night Dragon man-of-war couldn't handle. That was what she expected. What she got was silence, emptiness, and more debris. A lot more debris. "Looks like our mysterious friends with the sledgehammers got here first," Wutro commented as she and Aralani stood gazing out at the twisted shards of metal and ceramic floating across the starscape. Most of the wreckage was dark or dulled, but there were occasional small glints as something turned enough to catch the light from the distant sun. "So it would seem," Aralani agreed, frowning at the rubble. Something about the whole scene seemed odd and wrong. "That base," Wutro said, pointing toward the twisted and broken metal shell drifting in the midst of the field. "Does it look too big to you?" "Too big for a listening post, you mean?" Aralani eyed the shell. "Probably, but Yeve's records didn't specifically identify this base as such. We just assumed that because that's what all the rest of his group were." "I know," Wutro said, "and that bothers me too. All the rest of the bases were marked as to size and purpose. Listening post, scout refueling depot, sector coordination base, whatever. Why not this one?" "Good point," Aralani said. Wutro was right, but there was something else out there. Abruptly, she had it. "Be clean. That clump about 30 degrees starboard, 10 nadir," she called toward the sensor station. "The one that looks almost spherical. Scan that and tell me what it is." "Yes, ma'am," Beaclean said, his hands moving across his control board. "Looks like ordinary battle debris to me." Wutro said, craning her neck to check the main sensor display. "Probably," Aralani said, "but it seems to be clumped too close together." "Good point," Wutro said, her voice suddenly thoughtful. "A normal explosion should have sent the pieces way farther apart, and you're right about the array being too spherical. Not a missile, then? A spectrum laser barrage?" "I don't think so," Aralani said. "It's too clean somehow." "It's also too rocky," Beaclean put in. "It's not refined metal, ceramic, or plastic, Admiral, but solid rock. Spectral analysis suggests it's the remnants of an asteroid." Aralani and Wutro looked at each other. "So our mysterious attackers are taking pot shots at asteroids now?" Wutro asked. "Or something else is going on," Aralani said grimly, a strange thought starting to form in the back of her mind. "Octrimo, take us over there," she instructed the pilot. "Slow and easy. I don't want to disrupt the debris field any more than we have to. Beaclean, does our asteroid clump have any overall vector?" "Yes, Admiral, it does," Beaclean said. "Backtracking it now." "Good. The asteroid's path would likely have been distorted by the battle that had taken place around it, Aralani knew, but a backtrack might still be useful." "Specifically, no," she interrupted herself. "Admiral?" Beaclean asked, frowning at her. "I was going to offer a thought, but I don't want to influence your analysis," Aralani said. "Carry on." "Yes, ma'am." Beaclean turned back to his board. "If you can't tell him, can you at least tell me?" Wutro asked. "I especially can't tell you," Aralani said, giving her a wry smile. "Your brain is the—" Aralani found herself gazing at the remains of the Nicardon base, studying the damage with particular focus on the large gaps where heavy missiles had gotten through the defenses. That big one had probably been the first impact, she decided, shifting her attention back and forth between the wreckage and the analysis data scrolling across the secondary sensor display. The edges of the jagged hole had some odd coloration to them, the scan had noted, which the analysts were still working to identify. "Got it, Admiral," Beaclean spoke up. "Asteroid backtrack on the tactical." Aralani looked at the display. The plot was fuzzy, reflecting the inherent uncertainties of tracking something that had been drifting through multiple volleys of missiles and laser fire. "And here," the sensor officer added, his voice going darker as the new data overlaid the plot, "is where I estimate it was when the pieces first came apart." Wutro muttered something under her breath. "I will be," she shot a look at Aralani. "How did you know?" "I didn't," Aralani said, her stomach tightening. If Beaclean's track was accurate, the asteroid had broken apart directly in front of the gap in the station she'd identified as the point of first impact. "I just wondered why anyone would waste a missile on an asteroid." "Because no one did," Wutro said darkly. Aralani nodded, mentally recreating the scenario. A harmless-looking asteroid, drifting through the Nicardan station's defense perimeter, reaching its closest approach to the base, the outer shell shattering to reveal the missile launcher concealed inside it. A single massive missile, blasting through the base's hull before the Nicardan had any hope of reacting. The rest of the attackers then blazing in through the confusion to wreak havoc on the stunned and disorganized defenders. They would have had to set that up well in advance, Wootro continued, clearly thinking aloud. Start the asteroid from far enough out that the Nicardan didn't spot it. And have it moving leisurely enough that it didn't look out of place, Aralani agreed. We're talking months of prep time to make it work. Before Yve's little empire even collapsed, Wootro asked doubtfully. Who knew back then what was going to happen to him? I don't know, Aralani said. Maybe it wasn't anything to do with Yve. Maybe someone just didn't want anyone else setting up shop in this part of space. Wootro made a sound in her throat. That sounds ominous. I know. Admiral, Bykleyan said. We have an analysis of the blast hole edge discoloration now. It's a chemical reaction to unusually high amounts of flash-burned missile fuel. Consistent with a missile fired at point-blank range, Wootro said, nodding. Most of the time they get to burn off more of their fuel before they reach their target. This one's tanks burst open and were fried the same time the warhead went off. Yes, Aralani took a deep breath. I want full sensor and tactical readings on everything here, she ordered, raising her voice to carry across the entire bridge. Deploy a squad to check out the base, see if there's anything useful in there, and send a shuttle to examine the asteroid fragments. Full sensor scan there, too, and collect a few pieces to take back to Scylla. She looked at Wootro. After that, we'll head back to that last Nicardan base, the one our friends here also got to first, and do a full analysis of that one. If we're lucky, between the two of them we'll find a clue as to who exactly is trying to move into this neighborhood. Thalia's hadn't thought very much of her first time down in the secondary command room. She'd hoped her second time would be better. Unfortunately, that wasn't looking likely. He also needed Cherry and her third sight to bring the ship in across the last few light years, and to be ready to get them out quickly if the need arose, which meant the girl needed to be at a control console. Technically, of course, only Cherry had to be down here. But there was no way Thalia's was going to abandon the girl at such a critical moment, especially among a group of officers neither of them knew very well. As Thalia's had noted the first time she was here, the room's designers had apparently never thought a caregiver might join the Skywalker, and therefore hadn't included a dedicated chair for her near the nav station. At that first visit, Thalia's had simply stood behind Cherry, squeezing herself into the narrow space behind the girl. This time, though, Senior Commander Kirill was in charge, and he insisted that everyone be properly seated and strapped in. Thalia's was fully prepared to fight that ruling if she had to. Fortunately, it didn't come to that. Kirill didn't argue against her presence, but instead found a way to shuffle the sensor officer elsewhere so that Thalia's could have the seat next to Cherry. Though, from the scowl on Carol's face, she guessed that the repositioning and accommodation hadn't been his idea. Almost there. Thalia's looked closely at Cherry's face, expressionless, while at the same time with an underlying concentration, as her third sight guided the Springhawk through the final minutes of the flight. The space between Rapak and the Magus's world was more tangled than usual, even for the chaos, which had put an additional strain on Cherry. Thalia's could only watch the girl struggling with her task and hope that this side trip would be worth it. Your straps twisted. She looked up. Lachnam, the plasmasphere specialist she'd met the last time she and Cherry were down here, had unstrapped and was maneuvering into the narrow space between the helm and his own seat at the weapons station. What? She asked. I said your straps twisted, he repeated as he sidled behind Cherry to Thalias's side. Pop the catch and I'll fix it. Thalias craned her neck, trying to look over her shoulder. Sure enough, there was an extra half-turn in the strap. Thanks, she said, releasing the tension on the restraints. It's easy to do, Lachnam said, giving the strap a half-turn and handing the end back to her. Not as much room for the anchors down here, so the restraints are done a little differently than those on the bridge. Hopefully we won't need them, Thalia said. You're on official duty here now? I thought the last time was just a one-shot. So did I, Lacknam said, giving Cherry's restraints a quick look and nodding in satisfaction. As you may have noticed, sometimes Senior Captain Thrawn throws people into new positions or situations just to see how they react. For whatever reason, I guess he or Mid-Captain Samacro liked what they saw the last time he put me down here. Unless this is another one-time thing. It could be that too, Lacknam conceded. Either way, it's a promising sign, especially for someone of my rank. Talius winced. Officially, Lieutenant Commander was a sort of probationary rank, sandwiched between Lieutenant and Junior Commander, and given to officers who showed promise of someday being deemed capable of moving up the higher command structure. But unofficially, at least from what Thalius had been able to piece together from bits of overheard conversation, it had also become a convenient place to dump officers from the 9 ruling families, or the 40 great families, whom the council had already concluded would never rise any higher. It was supposed to be a sop to those individuals, a grand-sounding label to keep the more powerful Chiss families from taking offense that their beloved blood and cousins and ranking distance hadn't been as good as they'd all hoped. Of course, since the whole thing had become pretty much an open secret, it hardly qualified as a subterfuge anymore. But the continued willingness of all parties to play along kept the game going. Lacknam, as a member of one of the 40, was already poised to be in the second category. Whether he broke out of that and joined the first was something only time would tell. "Prepare for breakout," Thrawn's voice came over the speaker from the bridge. "That's you," Lacknam said as he again squeezed past Carrie and took his own seat. "Is she ready?" "Yes," Thalius said, studying the bridge monitor display. The Magus, she noted, was standing beside Thrawn's command chair, with her companion a half-step farther back. On Thrawn's other side stood Mid-Captain Samacro, his hands clasped behind him. To the rear of the whole group were 2 watchful guards, holstered Cherriks at their sides. "It's really no different for her being down here than it would be on the bridge," she added to Lacknam. "Civilians will be quiet," Kirill growled from his seat behind the helm station, "and officers will not engage in idle conversation. Everyone stay sharp. We don't know what we're heading into." Thalia's hunched her shoulders once, working out a bit of her tension. Whatever they found, she reminded herself firmly, Thrawn could handle it. The hyperspace swirl became star flares, became stars. A lot of stars she saw, emblazoned all across the exterior displays. Stars and absolutely nothing else. Flying blind into an unknown system, Thalia's knew was likely to put a ship into the middle of nowhere. Apparently, that was exactly where they'd landed. "Scan for planetary bodies and space vehicles," Thrawn ordered. "We are in your system, Magus," he continued, switching to Tarja. "As soon as we locate your world, we will learn its condition. What is its name, if I may ask?" "We do not share that with outsiders," the Magus said stiffly. "Ah," Thrawn said. "Well then, for our convenience, we'll name it Sunrise." The Magus' tongues darted out. "You mock our destruction?" "Not at all," Thrawn said. "I choose to nurture hope." "There is no hope. We will know soon enough," Thrawn said. "Until then, I will hold to hope." Belatedly, Thalius noticed that Cherry was breathing a little heavily. "You okay?" she whispered, reaching over and touching the girl's arm. "Yes," Cherry said. "That was a little weird." "In what way?" Thalius asked. "Just, I don't know," Cherry said, flexing her fingers. "It seemed harder than the charts showed." "Well, that's the chaos for you," Thalius said. Thrawn had suspected this region would be trickier than the projections had suggested. She knew, which was why he'd wanted Cherry to do the last leg instead of going jump by jump. "It'll be easier on the way out. No time pressure," she added. "Are you thirsty?" "A little," Cherry said, looking uncertainly around the room. "Are you allowed to leave?" "Don't need to," Thalius said, producing a Grillig juice packet from her pocket. "Thank you," Cherry said, some of the tension fading into a tentative smile as she took the packet. "You're welcome," Thalius said. "I have 2 more if you want them." "Just don't spill it on the control board," Lacknam warned. Carrie rolled her eyes. Turning toward Lacknam, she flipped out the packet sipper with exaggerated care. Lacknam gave her an exaggerated pretend glower in return, changed it into a smile, then turned back to his board. "Got it, sir," Dalvu announced from the bridge sensor station. "Planetary coordinates sent." "Very good," Thrawn said. "Lieutenant Commander Asmorty, in-system jump. Bring us in over the equator and 40,000 kilometers out." "Yes, sir." "Those in-system jumps always seem tricky," Thalias said to Carey. "Did Senior Captain Thrawn show you how to do those when you were out in lesser space?" "I did a couple," Cherry said. "They're really hard to get right. On one of them I overshot and got us way too far from the planet he wanted to look at. The other one was okay, but we mostly just did long-range scans." She scrunched up her nose. "Most of the places we went didn't have much to look at anyway." The forward visual display, "Wow," Cherry said under her breath. "He's good." "Years of practice, I imagine," Thalias said, eyeing the distant image. Most of the habitable planets she'd seen presented a similar mixture of white clouds and mountain peaks, blue waters, brown or gray or red deserts, and mixtures of vegetation that usually ranged from dark red to vivid violet. The planet in front of them was different. There were still decent-sized areas of white and blue, and a few ribbons with blended shades of blue-green. But there were also patches of black, big patches that dotted the entire sunlit side. The Magus had been right. Her world had suffered a devastating, horrendous war. The sensor officer a couple of stations down from Lacknam muttered something shocked-sounding. "What did she say?" Thalias asked him softly. "Pattern bombing," Lacknam said, his voice grim. "You can see a lot of the black spots are along the larger rivers. Rivers are where most people build their cities." Thalias nodded, the taste of stomach acid in her mouth. So the damage hadn't just been a warning or a single reprisal against a single attack. The two sides of the Civil War had each been hell-bent on wiping out the other. "We've prepared a remote drone shuttle, Mages, with sensing and recording gear," Thrawn said. "We'll move closer, then launch it toward the surface for low-altitude studies." "There is no need," the Magus said, her voice dull. "It is as I said. You can see the evidence. Our world is no more. Our people are no more." "There is still a great deal of vegetation," Thrawn pointed out. "Where plant life remains, there is hope for the entire ecosystem." "All the more reason for us to touch the beyond and strive for that healing," the Magus said. "But is not your first allegiance to your own people?" Thrawn countered. "If there are others alive, struggling and trying to rebuild, should you not add your group's strength and numbers to aid them? Our people are no more. We have not yet proven that. Our people are no more." The Magis waved a hand at the viewport. "All can see that clearly." "We can see nothing clearly from this distance," Thrawn insisted. "You must give us time to investigate. Thalias would want you to do that. Yet she who has touched the beyond is not here." "She has duties elsewhere," Thrawn said. Thalias winced. The proverbial unstoppable and immovable objects. "Do you need to go talk to her?" Cherry asked hesitantly. "I'll be okay here." Thalias hesitated. Would her presence or her words really make a difference? They might, she conceded. She should at least try. "I'll be right back," she whispered to Cherry. Wondering what Kirill was going to say if she left, she got a grip on her restraints release. "Captain, we have incoming," Dalvu cut in. 5 ships, gunboat size, coming around portside planetary disk. "Never mind," Thalias said, letting go of the release and reaching over for a quick reassuring squeeze of Cherry's arm. "I'm staying here." "Secondary command status?" Samacro called, looking at the bridge cam. "Sensors," Kirill prompted. "Sensor repeaters confirm ready," the secondary command room sensor officer a few stations down from Thalias said, pulling in both bridge and secondary feeds. "Weapons systems confirm ready." Lacknam added, "Repeater controls online." "Bridge, secondary command is ready," Kirill reported. "Very good," Samacro said. "Stand by." "Barriers," Thrawn ordered. Thalias looked over at Lacknam's board, saw the indicators for the Springhawk's electrostatic barriers go active. "What are these ships?" the Magis asked. "That is what we intend to learn," Thrawn said. "Enhance image. Are these ships from your people?" "I do not recognize them," the Magis said. The words sounded mechanical. Thalias noted, as if neither the ships nor anything else mattered anymore. "Perhaps these are the people who have now come to take our lost world to themselves." "Perhaps," Thrawn said. "Let us find out." On the unidentified ships, This is Senior Captain Thrawn aboard the Chiss Expansionary Defense Fleet warship Springhawk, he called in Tarja. Please identify yourselves. There was no response. The 5 ships angled toward the Springhawk, shifting into a circular formation. Well, well, Lachnam muttered. What? Thalias asked. Civilians will be quiet, Kirill bit out before Lachnam could answer. What? Thalias asked again, lowering her voice this time. That's a rosette pattern, Lachnam murmured back. Usually an attack formation. Thalias felt her stomach tighten. Is that going to be a problem? Not really, he said. 5 gunboats are a decent enough battle force, but not against a heavy cruiser like the Springhawk. More incoming, Dalvu spoke up. 2 more groups of 5 from portside planetary disk. Thalias felt her throat tighten. Lieutenant Commander